Hi, welcome to our second video on Hoover Home Education Patreon page. The kids are quiet and I'm kind of dressed up, so we are taking advantage of this situation. I'm once again locked in our bedroom so that, well, not locked, I should have a lock on, so that I can talk to you and have some peace and quiet. This video is about picking curriculum. Really, for a lot of you, this will be too late because I know if you try to follow the more traditional school year, you're going to be starting the middle to end of August. A lot of homeschoolers start in even way earlier in July, and a lot of homeschoolers will wait until after Labor Day to start. So it's totally up to you. With the curriculum, I wanted to touch on a little bit the different styles of homeschooling, and then I'll try to name a few curriculums in each, and then I have a list of other things that you should consider while you're picking curriculum. So right off the bat, there's the more traditional. This is you're trying to replicate what the school does at home. And in fact, depending on which legal options you choose, you can even get curriculum free from the school to use in your home. I actually would not be a big fan of this style. I think one of the benefits of homeschooling is to not have it be the type of school where you sit down and read textbooks and do workbooks. But if you like this, there's some definite tried and true curriculum to use, even some of them that I grew up on myself, like Abeka and Bob Jones. I did a lot of those when I was a kid. There's also Rod and Staff and Christian Light are both growing in popularity. So those are some to look into. Then there's some Charlotte Mason options. I, for one, am a huge fan of Charlotte Mason. Charlotte Mason was a lady who studied classical education very in depth in the 1800s, late 1800s. And she started a school where she taught teachers and then governesses and then parents how to teach their own kids. And she likes a lot of real life. She likes a wide and varied feast. She calls it, she compares education to eating, and you want to eat a lot of different things, a lot of different subjects. She's a fan of what's called living books. So not so much the textbooks, but a book like if you were going to learn about the pioneer days, you would read Laura Ingalls Wilder's books. Or if you were going to learn about the Civil War, you'd read a book like Across 5 Aprils. Or if you were going to learn about the Revolutionary War, you might read a book like Johnny Tremain. You might also read other things that would be good instead of a textbook in the Charlotte Mason tradition would be as many first-hand accounts and experiences as you can read, and then just a variety of books that you would get from the library about that same subject. I really, really like this because one of my big things I believe about education, I always have from the time I was a student in college, through teaching in the Christian school, and now as a homeschool mom, and not all of my ideas have stayed the same through all of those steps, but one idea philosophy that has totally stayed the same as long as I've been studying education is that we cannot teach kids everything they need to know in school, in their 1st through 12th grade education. We have to teach them how to be learners, how to continue to learn their whole life long. And I think that using those living books rather than textbooks not only can make the subject come more alive, it can also teach a kid how to continue that learning throughout their whole life and throughout their summers and on their Saturdays too. So, yes, I could go on and on about Charlotte Mason, how much I like her. One of her other big things is narration, where when you get finished reading something, you don't necessarily answer questions about it or even do a summary, but you just repeat back as much as you can remember. And that would be orally for the younger kids and written for the older kids. And I am a big fan of narration too. Anyway, some Charlotte Mason options is there's Ambleside Online. It's a free curriculum. And it's going to be a lot, just a really great book list. So even if you don't go with this curriculum as your main curriculum, it's a great resource to go and look at their reading list and use their books as read-alouds. Some other Charlotte Mason options are Sunlight, and I know Master Books also claims to be a more Charlotte Mason based curriculum. And Master Books still is one, it's one that I use some Master Book stuff, or am I going to? I haven't yet. And it's one where it is just a workbook that you open up and go, which is a really nice option. But it uses some of Charlotte Mason's ideas as it teaches too, which is great. Then there's Classical, which there's a lot of great options with Classical, and it's going to be very big on starting in the grammar stage where you memorize facts, then going on to the logical stage where you, the logic stage where you start to put those together, and then the rhetoric stage in high school. Classical Conversations is and I totally love Classical too. I think there's a lot of good things. One of the other things it does is it teaches, like if you're studying the Revolutionary War in history, you might read something like Johnny Tremain in English. So your subjects match up across, your subjects all match up with the unit that you're doing, which I really love. Some classical education options are Classical Conversations. That's sort of a whole homeschool co-op on its own. You join this co-op and you get trained as tutors, and you go once a week, which is really important, and get together as a class and do recitations. So it's one option. My Father's World, which I use, is another option. My Father's World is great because it combines Charlotte Mason and Classical and units studies. So I love that you can get all three in just one package with My Father's World. So that's, and Veritas Press would be another very commonly used classical education option. Unschooling is an option. It's going to have some things in common with Charlotte Mason in that it's very practical, very much a life application type of school where you do a lot of math in the grocery store and math while you're reading recipes and reading and following directions when you're reading recipes and things like that. And there's different degrees of unschooling. Some people do use some curriculum and some people use very, very little or almost none. So another style would be the unit studies, where you, for a period of time, really focus on one subject. There might be one particular animal or habitat that you studied for a while. And I really, when I think back on my own education and the things that I remember the best, it's those unit studies that I do remember the best. the information and what we did and what I learned. So I am a huge fan of unit studies. And like I said, My Father's World combines Charlotte Mason, classical education, and unit study. So it's a good one. Some other unit study options are, I've actually not heard these that are on this list. Weaver, Konos, 5 in a Row, Winter Promise. I've not really ever heard of any of those, to tell you the truth. None of the people that are on the same homeschool groups that I'm in use those, but they might be something good to look into, because I do believe unit study is a really good way to study. You might just be kind of overwhelmed with the whole homeschool thing and want an online option, and there are quite a few online options. Bob Jones and Abeka both have their own versions of those. Like I said, they've been around the homeschooling scene since I was a kiddo, so I'm sure they would do a really good job with those. And you know, who knows, with this school year, what's coming up, there might be some really good online options offered through your school. So some of the other things to consider, besides just what style of homeschool you want, when you're picking a curriculum, is, do you want something that you can just like open and go? They've got the lesson plan laid out there for you. Or do you want to do a lot of planning yourself? And do you want to stick all with one curriculum, or do you want to do some mixing and matching? My Father's World that I use for kindergarten and first grade, it's all contained. That's all you need. I added a different math for first grade. So I did a little bit of mixing and matching that way. And then from second grade on up with My Father's World, you pick your own math and language arts. They have some that they recommend, and they have some then that are on the teacher's lessons planned out for you, which is nice. But if you choose to go with a different brand, a different curriculum, then you would just follow just what applies to the history and reading and science with My Father's World. So, and eventually, I forget at what grade, My Father's World has you do a separate science curriculum also. So, but other people, you know, they might say, I have a friend, she's doing master books, math, and different phonics curriculum. I think 100 easy lessons for phonics. And she's just kind of, she thinks she's going to do some Usborne books for science. So she's picking and choosing, mixing and matching. And that's totally cool. You can do that, whichever works best for you and your kiddo. So another thing to consider is, do you want to work all of your kids individually, or do you want to do some subjects as a family? My Father's World is designed that, I'm sorry, I'm probably going to talk about that one a lot because that's the one we use and I know it. But it's designed that from third grade on through eighth grade, you can do it as a family. And there's some other curriculums that you can use as a family too. Some where they like their science curriculum, for example, isn't necessarily by grade. They just say these are some elementary science books. And so if you got more than one kid who's in elementary, you just pick one of the elementary books and do all of that as a family. So look at that. That can cut down on your cost, which would of course be another thing that you really want to consider. How much is this going to cost? There are some curriculums that can run $600-700, and some that are $200 or $300. And like I said, there's even some that are free. So, and there's ways to cut down your costs by shopping around for some used, or using things that your friends have used and borrowing. You might want to also look at how much time it's going to take you to complete everything. I would say definitely don't try to plan a long school day. Try to be done by lunch. And so that might mean do just a short amount. Ideally, I think this is what you should do. You should do a short amount of each subject, or you could do fewer subjects, but just you and your kids are really going to get burnt out if you try to buy a curriculum that really fills up your day. You want to keep it short and sweet. And then the last thing I would think you should consider is what your friends are doing. There might be a benefit in have you and your kid doing something similar to what your friends are doing, so that you have that support. On the other hand, you are individuals, and you and your kids are not your friends. And maybe you need to pick something totally different that you've never heard of and take a risk because you think it's really going to work better for your family. So you know, and anywhere along that spectrum, you can do what your friends do, or you can pick your own thing. And either way is right and good. And definitely just be in prayer over this. I'm sure that God will be leading you to the curriculum that'll be best for your family. And yep, that brings up one more point that I almost forgot to talk about, is your faith. There's some really good curriculums out there that are written by secular people. There's some really good curriculums out there that are written by people from other denominations, like some good Mennonite curriculum. So I know The Good and the Beautiful is one that people really like. And I think Christian Light maybe is one that's a Mennonite too. So just consider what the faith of the people who are writing the books, how that will impact the curriculum too. Yeah, so best of luck. Let me know. Comment here. Send me a personal message on Facebook. Whatever. Let me know if I can help you in any way, get you some more direction as to which curriculum might fit you best. So, blessings.